The Italian Wine Podcast is the community-driven platform for Italian wine geeks around the world. Support the show by donating at ItalianWinepodcast.com. Donate €5 or more and we'll send you a copy of our latest book, My Italian Grape Geek Journal, absolutely free. To get your free copy of My Italian Grape Geek Journal, click Support Us at ItalianWinepodcast.com or wherever you get your pods. Grazie mille.
Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Listen in as we journey to some of Italy's most beautiful places in the company of those who know them best, the families who grow grapes and make fabulous wines. Through their stories, we will learn not just about their wines, but also about their ways of life, the local and regional foods and specialities that pair naturally with their wines, and the most beautiful places to visit. We have a wonderful journey of discovery ahead of us, and I hope you will join me. Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Today we travel to Sardinia, the second largest island in the Mediterranean, to meet my guest Alberto Cella of the Quarto Moro di Sardinia winery, which is itself part of Sardinia Terroirs, an interesting collective of wine properties located across the various different winelands of Sardinia. Welcome, Alberto. Thank you so much for being my guest today. How are you?
Thank you, Marc. Good morning, and good morning, everyone. I'm fine. I'm very well. I'm in Holland right now for work, and I'm very happy to be your guest in this fantastic podcast.
Well, I'm delighted to have you, Alberto. So you were just explaining to me that you studied in Holland and spent some time there, and you're back presenting some wines now. So you're working, but also revisiting your host family and people you knew while you were there.
Yeah, exactly. I had the luck to Holland 7 years ago when I was 17. I am 24 now. And I had this fantastic experience at school. And I used to live in a Dutch family so that I could even learn Dutch when I was here. I think it's very particular. It's a particular culture and language that I really like. It's a land that I love. And I was happy to come back here. Our Dutch importer called me to ask me if I wanted to come to the Netherlands to present our wines to their clients. I was very delighted, very happy to say yes, to give an affirmative answer.
Well, I'm sure your importer was delighted too, because there can't be many Italians who can explain their own wines in Dutch to a Dutch audience. Bravo.
I think so too. Thank you. Thank you.
Now, Alberto, you're from Sardinia. This is your home. But, many of our listeners who are located all around the world may never have been to Sardinia before. So for those who haven't been to Sardinia, can you help them to gain a picture of this large and special island? Where is it? What makes it such a unique place?
Sure. So Sardinia is an island located in the middle, in the center of the Mediterranean Sea, at the center of this beautiful sea, actually. We have beautiful beaches where we can swim in the summer, beautiful mountains where we can see even the snow in the winter. So, it's a very various island, has different territories and climates. Sardinia is fantastic even for differences of the soils that we have. We can have, in many different areas, soils from granite. We can have limestone. We can have clay, pure sand, where we have even piede franco as viticulture. And we have also a lot of volcanic soils. So Sardinia has also its own language, which is different depending on the area where we are located. So in the north, we speak a particular kind of Sardinian language, which is very different from the southern Sardinian language. And also, we have a lot of different foods and different foods depending on the different areas of Sardinia, different villages and provinces. And our food, luckily, can be from art, so meat, but also seafood. We have excellent seafood coming from our coasts.
That's a great introduction, and I look forward to exploring the foods. But I think even within those few words, Alberto, you've really given an idea to our listeners that this is a large island that's incredibly varied in terms of the geography, in terms of the actual terroirs, the different rocks and soils that the vines grow on, but also culturally and the different foods from sea and from land. And very interesting that you mention as well that the Sardo language differs all across the island. So that's another language that you know as well, Alberto. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. We are, as Sardinian people, we are always very proud to have our own language, just because, as you can imagine, Mark, Sardinia is an island dislocated from Italy. It's a bit far away, so that in the past, Sardinian people didn't speak Italian before being part of the rest of Italy. So traditionally, Sardinian language has been always spoken by Sardinian people, and we are still proud to speak it nowadays.
Italian Wine Podcast. If you think you love wine as much as we do, then give us a like and a follow anywhere you get your pods.
Would you speak it at home with your parents? Would you speak it with your friends, people the same age as you?
Actually, in my village, it's not very often spoken by the young people, but in many villages it is still. I often speak it also at home with my parents, but more often with my grandma. We always speak Sardinian. Yes.
Okay, that's wonderful to be able to communicate with your grandmother in your own language. That's very special. Very important that you do keep that up.
Thank you. Yes, I think so too. It's important.
Now, Alberto, let's talk about Quarto Moro. Tell us the background of your family wine estate and also where you are. You were explaining to me where you are and where the soil is and the grape varieties that are suited to your area.
Yes. So Quarto Moro is located on the west coast of Sardinia in the territory of Campidano di Terralba. So the Campidano is the biggest valley of Sardinia. It is located between the Monte Arci, which is an old volcano, not active anymore, and the Gulf of Oristano. So between the sea and the old volcano. So we are very lucky in Quarto Moro because in our properties, in our vineyards, we can have different soils in the same territory. And what I mean is that we can have volcanic soils, so with a lot of volcanic rocks. Particularly, the compounds are obsidian, which is a black stone special from Monte Arci, is our particular stone, our special stone that we can find only in Monte Arci, talking about Sardinia. And basalt stones. The soils are very difficult to be worked with a tractor and with our machines. What I want to say is that they are very important for the mineral characteristics that they can give to our wines. And not only volcanic soils, because we also work on sandy soils, really close to the sea. If we go more to the valley, so the elevation is absent, is 0 meter above the sea level. Our vineyard, in particular Vermentino and also a Bovale vineyards, is totally on sandy soils. And we have also Piedefranco. So the Piedefranco vines are old vines planted directly on sand. So we don't need a rootstock made of, we say, American roots. So that phylloxera can't attack the roots of the European variety if they are planted on sand. That's a physical problem, a mechanical problems of this parasite, of phylloxera.
So that's actually fascinating. Fascinating to hear of the old vines on Piedefranco planted in sand, these ungrafted vines, but also this variety of volcanic soil. You know, we talk about volcanic soil, but there's so many different types of volcanic soils. And I've not come across obsidian before in other parts of Italy. I know obsidian from Mexico, where I was born, where obsidian was used in ancient civilizations to make tools because it's a volcanic glass, black glass that can be struck and sharp instruments can be made from it. But I haven't heard of vineyards growing in obsidian. So it's fascinating to hear, even within your corner, Alberto, of this large island, the immense variety of terrains that you have. Now, just before we turn to Sardinia terroir and explore the island, let's get a better picture then of the wines you produce at Quarto Moro.
Yeah, sure. Quarto Moro was created in 2010 by my parents, who are Piero and Luciana. Piero is my father, who is a winemaker, an enologist, who used to work for many years with Giacomo Takis, which was a very important enologist of Italy, so a very famous one. My father was very lucky to work with him by his side for 13 years, actually, 12 or 13, Cantina di Sant'Adi. But many years later, in 2010, my father, while he was working for many wineries in Sardinia as a consultant, as a winemaker, decided together with my mother to create a Quarto Moro, so to create an experimental winery focused only on indigenous varieties from Sardinia, so that they wanted to create a great quality wines, and the focus was the terroir of Monte Arci, of the Campidano di Terralba. Our variety principally is Bovale. So the Bovale is a red grape, which can be fresh, which can be fruity, sapid, but which can be also a well-bodied wines, so that we can play, I like to say, we can play with different kind of fermentations, different kinds of aging, so that we can produce different kinds of Bovale. It's a very plastic variety, I would say. But not only Bovale, we also produce Cannonau, we also produce Monica, we also produce Cagnolari and Carignano, because my father wanted to have a lot of different varieties, and the particularity of Quarto Moro is that we produce every wine 100% with one variety. So we don't make blends, but every variety is vinificated, is produced 100% pure in a bottle. Even to understand well the differences between our different traditional Sardinian varieties. Talking about the white varieties, our most traditional is the Vernaccia, so Vernaccia di Oristano, but also Vermentino, which is the most famous white variety of Sardinia, and also Semidano, so that we can experiment a lot of different wines, and my father likes to experiment a lot. And that's why Quarto Moro was born as a didactic winery for him. And then the years passed, and now Quarto Moro is effectively a winery which produces 65,000 bottles, and we export wines outside Sardinia, so to the whole Italian country, even to Europe, and even to Japan, to the US, to Australia, to many different countries. And we are very happy and proud to bring Sardinia outside with our products.
Okay, well, that is a really good overview of Quarto Moro and how your family winery was begun by your father, who already had this great knowledge of Sardinian terroirs and grape varieties. And I'm really fascinated to hear just from your own family winery the range of wines you're producing from the Vermentino di Sardegna, or it's a Vermentino di Sardegna, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I would say also a funny thing. Actually, we are producing 20 different labels. And for me, that I need to communicate to our clients and to the wine lovers all our production is a bit difficult for me. I mean, it's my father's passion, also my passion, of course, because my work in our winery, in our company, is also the management of the vineyards. That's my great passion, actually. I didn't say it. But I also need to communicate outside Sardinia what we do, what our work is. And it's difficult for me to communicate 20 different labels.
Yeah, I can well understand that. It is a really, really fascinating range. And we're talking about as well the Vernaccia di Oristano, which is quite a unique wine, isn't it? Tell us about that.
Exactly. So the Vernaccia di Oristano is a particular, I would say, dessert wine, even if it's not a sweet wine, as many people think. Vernaccia di Oristano is a particular floor-aged wine. So the floor are a particular kind of yeast which envelopes on the surface of the wine inside the barrel. But these yeasts need some air inside the barrel, so that the oak barrel need to be a bit empty.
Not filled right to the top. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Yeah, exactly. It's a traditional way to produce Vernaccia. Actually, in Quarto Moro, we don't produce floor Vernaccia. We make a fresh Vernaccia with some days of maceration on the skins, because For us, the best expression of a fresh Vernaccia is this one. So to express in the best way all its aromatic characteristics and to express the almond taste, which is very particular of Vernaccia.
Okay, I've not come across a Vernaccia that wasn't made under the floor, this nutty sort of flavors. And I guess it's a tradition that maybe came from when the Spaniards were in Sardinia. Could that be when this winemaking came in? Because the floor, of course, is on the tops of barrels in Jerez de la Frontera for the Fino and Manzanillas that are produced there.
Yeah, that's totally right. Honestly, Mark, this is a good question. I don't actually know the answer because the Flor Vernaccia is a very ancient tradition. So we share some different grape varieties and winemaking ways with Spain, but nobody actually knows exactly who imported this winemaking way or wine varieties to Sardinia or Spain. We don't actually know it for sure because, talking about Cannonau is a cousin of Garnacha and Grenache in Spain and France. And Cannonau, let's say, is the Sardinian Garnacha or Grenache. But we don't actually know where it comes from, if it came from Sardinia or Spain or France. Even because Phoenicians, before the Spanish domination in Sardinia, the Phoenicians were very good commerciants all around Mediterranean Sea, so that they could import and export the different foods, the different habits and grapes all around the Mediterranean Sea.
That's fascinating. That's really, really interesting to show how wine culture in Sardinia goes back to antiquity and, of course, over the centuries subsequently with the various other occupations, including the Spanish. You're really painting a fascinating picture of this complex island and, the complexity simply in the 20 wines from your own estate is compounded when we look at Sardinia as a whole. Now, let's turn to Sardinia Terroirs, this project, which is doing just that, isn't it? Is it trying to present Sardinia, the whole island in all its magnificent variety, and give identity to these different terroirs? Explain the goals behind the project.
Exactly. So Sardinia Terroir is an association which reunites 8 different wineries all around Sardinia. One is our winery, which is Quarto Moro. Then we have Antonella Corda, which is in southern Sardinia, in the area of Parteolla. Then another winery in southern Sardinia is Giba, which is in the Sulcis, and they produce a beautiful Carignano. Then we have Gallura with Saraya, with fantastic Vermentinos and granite soils. Then we go to the northwestern part of Sardinia with Kerchi with limestone producing Cannulari grapes and beautiful Cannulari wines. And then if we go to the central part of Sardinia, we have the beautiful territory of Mandrolisai, which I personally love. It's a fantastic territory, I think, up on the hills, even with a high elevation. We talk about also 700 meters of elevation for the vineyards. And we have here the winery Fradiles, which means cousins in Sardinian language. And we have then in central part of Sardinia too, in Barbagia, we've got Iolei, which is in Oliena, which produce Cannonau. And talking about Cannonau, we move to the east coast of Sardinia, central east coast, and we got Tenute Perdarubia, also producing beautiful Cannonaus, but different because of the different terroir. And our purpose, our goal is to let the world know all the difference that we got with Sardinian different terroirs, so that we can have, even with sometimes the same varieties, different wines with different tastes and different peculiarities, different aromas. That's our purpose.
Okay, that's a fascinating project, and I guess those 8 producers, all of you, must share similar ethos and ideals and an approach to making wines. Is that what brought you together?
Exactly. That's why. Also because our focus is to produce wine with the best quality that we can have, with respect for the nature, respect for the vineyards and the environment which is around the vineyards, and so that the wine that we put then in the bottle is going to be the best response, the best product that we can produce coming from our terroir. And so we would like to give to the world a good idea, a good perception of what Sardinia can produce in a bottle of wine.
That's really interesting. And to begin to present to consumers, to give them the possibility to distinguish, for example, a Vermentino di Sardegna from the west to the Vermentino di Gallura, which has a different character, as you've explained, or the different Cannonau from different parts of the island. That's very important to help people to distinguish the variety that, everything that we talk about is about really how it's such a big island that has so much contrast and so much variety. And I think that's what's really fascinating for visitors. Now, you mentioned at the beginning of our talk, Alberto, that just as in wine, just as we have this mosaic of terroirs, this mosaic of different soils and topographies and volcanic soils or sandy soils, that also the cuisines of Sardinia change across the island. Can you perhaps give us a brief overview of Sardinian cuisine, but maybe some specific foods that pair particularly well with some Sardinian wines, that foods and wines that no visitor who comes to Sardinia should miss, absolute must try?
Absolutely. So one is, of course, the porceddu, the maialetto in Italians, which is the baby pork, actually, which is maybe a bit sad to say, but it has always been a traditional, fantastic food of Sardinia. So that this little pork has to be around 6 kilos weight, and we roast it in the fire with an iron stick, and the cooking, the roasting needs to be very, very slow, about 2 to 3 hours cooking beside the fire, so that with this slow cooking, so that the juice and the freshness of this meat can stay inside, and we can enjoy at the best this particular kind of cooking and this particular kind of little pork. So this, I think, is the most typical meat of Sardinia, but we have a lot of many different meats, like the lamb, like sheep's meat, but also goat.
Alberto, what would be the ideal wine to enjoy with the porceddu, this suckling pig that is spit roasted directly over a wood fire?
I would say Cannonau, absolutely. A structured Cannonau with a well-integrated tannins.
Okay.
Compared to the fat of the little pig.
Okay.
That would be the perfect pairing, I think. Cannonau and maialetto. That's perfect. But then, Mark, I would talk about our fish dishes, our seafood, because as I was saying at the beginning of our conversation, Sardinia is surrounded by the sea. By different sea, we got the West Sea, we got the North, the South, watching Africa, by the way, because we are very, very close to Africa, and also the East Sea. And in these different seas, we got even differences about the different fishes. So we are very lucky. We can have raw fish in pairing with a vermentino, or maybe some fish soup or roasted fish. Our cuisine is very various. We got many differences, and yeah, we are lucky that's for.
Yeah, and I guess this varied cuisine is easily matched with such a varied selection of wines. Alberto, what about some of the pasta dishes? I know the handmade pasta in Sardinia is very delicious, and again, something that varies across the island.
Yeah, of course, I would talk about the fregula. Fregula is our wet pasta. They are little pasta balls made of wet. I personally really love fregula with seafood, like fresh fish coming from our sea, like orata, like spigola, which are mostly our traditional fishes that we can fish in our sea.
Orata would be sea bream for us, I think.
Yes.
And I think the gilt-head sea bream with the gold on the head.
Exactly, yeah.
And the spigola would be the sea bass.
The sea bass, exactly, yeah.
For the fregola, would that be eaten quite soupy or with a pasta asciutta, more drier sauce?
I personally like it made in a soupy way, but also I wouldn't say pasta asciutta, but in a creamy way.
Yeah.
It can create a fantastic cream
Okay.
with a mantecatura. Help me with this word, Mark, please.
Oh, okay. So when you're beating in the butter and the cheese, a pecorino cheese, I imagine, because pecorino from Sardinia is some of the best that you will find anywhere.
Of course, we got an ancient tradition for pecorino, but we put pecorino in the fregula, or anyways in our first dishes when the fregula is made with meat, or also with carciofi, with artichokes, which are traditional from Sardinia. In Sardinia, we have artichokes with the spikes, which are delicious. And then we don't have only fregula. We got in the northwest part also andarinos, so in the territory of Kerki winery. Andarinos is a very rare pasta made by the old ladies, and who is lucky to learn this traditional way of pasta making is very lucky. I would also like to learn to make these traditional kinds of pasta, as fregula, as andarinos, and also I think the most rare pasta of Sardinia is the filindeu, which is made in the central part of Sardinia. So filindeu is so rare that it is made only in Nuoro, which is the central city of Sardinia. And this is made only by the ancient ladies in this city. The best way to make filindeu in the cuisine, in the kitchen, is with a soup of lamb or sheep. Mark, when you have time, my advice is to search on the internet this pasta, filindeu, because it's very, very particular. I saw it only in Sardinia, and I think we have it only in Sardinia.
Well, that is fascinating, and it's a wonderful overview, a quick overview of a very complex cuisine that I know is varied and delicious from the sea side with wonderful fresh seafood and shellfish. I've had some wonderful lobster in Sardinia.
Yeah, lobster, right.
To the heartier foods of the inland, these foods of shepherds, these foods that are almost food you can eat with the hands and drink back, these full-bodied wines. You're making us all want to get on a plane and visit and discover Sardinia, Alberto. So a final question. At Quartomoro in particular, but also within the Sardinian terroir, what about wine hospitality? Can our listeners visit and discover directly with the wine producers?
Absolutely, yeah. One of our goals was even the one of hosting people at our wineries, because we think that wine tourism is very important for Sardinia. So that in all of our wineries, we do tastings, we do visits in the vineyards, and we explain our works on the field, so that everyone who comes to our wineries can understand very well what we do and what we produce. So first, visits in the vineyard to understand our work, then visits in the wine cellar, and we always finish the day with a tasting of our wines. So starting from sparkling Vermentino, maybe, I would say we can taste the still Vermentino, the other white wines, and then we go more to the structured wines, so to the Cannonau, to the Bovale, and even sometimes we like to pair the wines with our traditional food. But yes, we really like to host people, to host tourists from all over the world in our wineries.
Extremely important, and a good reason for Italian Wine Podcast listeners to discover Sardinia from an insider's point of view through meeting the wine growers themselves and tasting, understanding. I think you're right. It's important to go into the vineyard, see this unique soil or soils of different terroirs, and then taste the wines. Alberto, we've only had time for a short chat this morning, but you've covered an immense amount of territory in your excellent explanations, telling us not only about Quartomoro and its origins and activities, but also taking us on a quick tour all around this large island, both from the point of view of wines and also just giving us a hint of the wonderful flavors that we'll have on the islands. You've certainly made me want to return to Sardinia, and I'm sure our listeners too. So thank you very much for being my guest today.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you again. And I hope to have explained Sardinia in the best way as possible in this short conversation that we had. Yeah, I loved it.
You've done it very, very well. And will you be at Vinitaly?
Yeah, sure. We will be at Vinitaly, all of us, in the Sardinian pavilion.
I'll make sure and come over and say hello when I'm there.
Absolutely, absolutely. We will wait for you.
Well, thank you again, and I'll see you in a few weeks. Grazie. Buona giornata, Alberto.
Grazie a te, Mark. Buona giornata. Grazie mille.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Please remember to like, share and subscribe right here or wherever you get your pods. Likewise, you can visit us at italianwinepodcast.com. Until next time, chin chin.